NFL game and draft analyst Charles Davis. Charles, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks a lot, Mike. I hope you and your family are doing well too.
Everybody's safe, thank God. So, as we finally get to within a couple days of the draft, there's always something going on. Today, it's Tua and the Wonderlic test. How for you? How big a deal?
Not as big a deal as maybe for most, because we've seen guys with what we would call below average Wonderlicks flourish in this league. The big deal is if they feel like they can process when it comes to game time, game speed, game action. And I don't think that's been his problem at Alabama from what I can see on game tape.
So, and you're right, the great quarterbacks, and we won't list any, but great quarterbacks who we know were really poor Wonderlic guys, really poor, and turned out to be Hall of Fame players. So there's more than a couple of them.
No doubt about it, and you're right. We don't need to name any names, but we're talking about literally Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
guys.
Hall of Famers, absolutely, yes.
Who scored less than 15 on a Wonderlic?
One of them 10 that I know of, so a 10 no less. Yes, yes. So.
We know MVPs.
Yes.
With that type of number. So I'm with you on that, Mike. It's a way to give you a baseline test about different things, but if you take it as the be all end all, whether you're picking quarterbacks or you're picking employees for your company, you better get to know them a little bit more and know what you're expecting from them.
All right, from your standpoint, I've had guys on talk about it. I've had Scott Pioli on a bunch of times talk about it. A lot of different thoughts on what will be the biggest difference this year. Do you have to move up trades earlier in the draft? Do you have to stay strict to your board? Do you not take the guy who you don't have as much information on, who might be a medical or a behavioral issue? What do you think is the biggest one that will change in this draft?
I think, Mike, the ones where teams always have categories about the contingency guys, just like you mentioned at the end, medical, behavioral, things of that nature. I think you're going to make a decision about them before you go into the room, as opposed to actually debating them if it comes down to that in the room, because no one's in the room. You're all connected by TVs and phones and things of that nature. And what if the guy who knows him best, what if all during the time you're on the clock, that set goes wiggy on you? Now you can't even ask him to stand on the table or not at that moment. Things that you would get by all of us being in one room, and you can get things very quickly in that situation, make your decision. Here, I think you're going to make a lot more decisions early, similar to when coaches tell us after a game, oh, we made that decision on Wednesday that if we got a fourth down on the plus side of that field, we were going to go for it. We had a play in mind. Those sorts of decisions are going to have to come into play now. Obviously, they'll adjust as it goes on, but some of those people, you're going to probably take them out and say, we're not even going to discuss that now because we don't have the wherewithal to do it the way we want to or the way we've done it in the past.
Talking with the NFL's Charles Davis. Charles, Tua has been the story of the draft. He will be. We know who's going 1 and 2, and then the draft starts. We know the Lions would like to trade out. We know the Giants would listen to trades. Giants will probably take an offensive tackle. Lions can't take a quarterback there. We know it. They have to stay with their quarterback. They can't trade him. That being said, is it Tua, a team will come up and get him, or do you think the weight of the issues, now the Wonderlic weighs in a little bit, the issues of the medical versus this wonderful talent who comes from a great program, all the stuff that's on the plus side, do you think he goes as high as we think, or does he, when push comes to shove, does he slip a little bit?
I turned in my last mock draft, and all the smoke that's coming out, as you know, Mike, at this time of year, right? It's not the smoke that announces that we actually have a new pope. It's the black smoke that tells us we got to keep voting. All right, it's not the white smoke. So as I go through all this black smoke and try and figure it out, I left Tua at number 5 to Miami because I just said, okay, if I'm going to keep chasing everything, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. But everything seems to be moving in the direction that the safer pick is Herbert, that the Dolphins may very well move in that direction at 5, which may trigger the slide for Tua because it doesn't seem like the Chargers would have the same interest. And then where's the slide? To me, Jacksonville at 9, if no one else comes up, I think they've got a hard decision because you can talk to me about Gardner Minshew all you want, but if Tua slips down to you at 9, I don't know that you turn that down. And that's where things get interesting. I think Peter King talked about New England coming up to 13 if indeed he slides that far and trading with San Francisco, their old trading partner. A lot of different scenarios. I still think he's the second best quarterback in this draft because of the injury. All right, if he didn't have the injury, we would have a much healthier debate between he and Burrow. But Burrow earned this spot. Tua, to me, still number 2. If a medical checked out, he would be my guy. But I do hear, like you do, that all of a sudden the slide is beginning. Now who gets interested and who wants to make the move up?
You mentioned Jacksonville. A couple of things there. They not only where they might be put in a position, but also they have some players who are very unhappy. They have Fournette's been mentioned a lot. Now, to me, when Ngakoue is going to do what he did today, there comes a point if you're a team, you got to draw the line. You cannot let this guy embarrass you. If he's going to go after the owner's kid, you know what? There comes a point where the owner's got to say, all right, this guy doesn't want to be on my team. Get rid of him. Get him out of here. Enough's enough. He's not the best player in the league. I have to take this abuse, every day from this guy. I'm not taking it anymore. Jaguars have to finally show some respect and get rid of the guy.
What interested me about the tweet exchange today was that Tony Khan, the owner's son, how he concluded it. And you saw it, Mike. And if you're talking, this helped our trade value today, by the way. You got another thing coming, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing. 2, the draft coming up, there aren't a ton of edge rushers, those dynamic edge rushers in this draft. So to me, Ngakoue's value is up for that reason, because I feel like if teams haven't made the move now, they want to draft and see if they're able to get one of the guys they covet in the draft, and there aren't many. And if not, now his trade market gets established. Now more people get involved. Leonard Fournette, I think, is in a different spot, Mike, because as a runner, we've now gone through the Gurley got big money, Zeke got big money, what's the payoff phase, and we're back to, I don't know if I'm going to pay it back that kind of money again, but this is a rich running back draft, and it starts in round 2. If I'm Leonard Fournette, he's thinking I'm a former number 1 pick, top 10 guy. I don't think he's viewed that way anymore. I think people are going to draft, see what they get, and I think the market for him is going to be somewhat tepid. I'd be surprised if everybody's thinking they're getting a 2 or a 3. I'd be stunned by that.
I totally agree. First of all,
yeah,
I never trade for anybody's running backs. Number 1, I don't want it. And the same thing with Beckham. If you're Beckham and you're now traded to for the second time, you're on your 3rd team. You're no longer the man anymore. You have moved. You haven't been productive. You can complain about everything you want. You can't stay on the field. Now you can't work with another team. All of a sudden, you're not the guy anymore. Now you got to go prove you're the guy somewhere. You're not the guy anymore. No longer are you the guy who's everybody's number 1 receiver.
What's interesting in contrast to me is Brandon Cooks making his move around the league. Because this is a kid that I knew in college, Mike, that I thought was as pro-ready and trained to be a pro as I'd seen a young kid do. Watching the clips, carrying himself, getting himself ready for the pros, et cetera. And he's had a heck of a career. Now, injuries have become a problem lately because of the concussions. But think about him, back-to-back years, he's a starting receiver in the NFL and in the Super Bowl. New England and the Rams back-to-back years. But how does a talent like that keep moving from team to team to team? At least he's gotten to the Super Bowl and in the playoffs with his teams. Odell Beckham hasn't been able to do that yet.
What do you think?
One time in the playoffs, with the Giants.
What do you think happens with Jameis Winston? What do you think happens with Cam Newton?
I'm stuck. I am so baffled by both of those. I would have told you a month ago that I would have seen Cam Newton in Los Angeles with the Chargers.
Makes sense.
If they're going to play with Tyrod Taylor, you talk about the plus size model, better player, former MVP model, and you and I both know they can't give tickets away to the Chargers out there.
Yep.
So if you're going to have an attraction, if you didn't get Tom Brady, that looked like the one to me. They didn't bite on that one. To me, if I'm Jameis Winston, I would love to get to New England, but there's no money involved in that. New England doesn't have the money to get that done. I'd love to get there and compete and have Bill Belichick kind of mold me a little. But the other place I try and get is Jacksonville. I'd go there and want to compete with Gardner Minshew all day long. Not that Minshew's a bad player, but Winston was the former number 1 pick in the entire draft. More than enough talent if he can harness himself he could actually be a contender for that job there.
How about these Pittsburgh rumors, too, as a guy, if he sits for a year and then takes over for Big Ben? I mean, that could be an interesting spot, too, if he wound up there, you know?
It is. It's a great spot. And that one, I think they'd have to be creative with the money. But between you and me, if I've been the number one pick and I've got that kind of bonus and I've done a pretty decent job of taking care of it, which I think that he and his team have, I would find my way to not let money be an issue. But what a great place to kickstart your career again. Behind Ben, we don't know what's going on with the elbow. He's 38 years old. And with a head coach like Mike Tomlin, to me, that would be an ideal spot. I like that suggestion, Mike.
All right, we're talking with Charles Davis. The Jets and the Giants are looking, and the players are kind of cluster players. The Giants, everyone's got them in these offensive linemen. The Jets could be in an offensive lineman on the other end, or they could be in the first of those wide receivers. You follow the draft closely. You follow college closely. Do you like one of the tackles better than the others?
I was a big Mekhi Becton fan, and I know big sounds like I'm trying to be cute because he's the biggest tackle in this draft. But the diluted test is going to bring into question some things, and some teams are going to have to do some investigating there. Tristan Wirfs from Iowa, love his athletic skills and gifts. And when this whole process started, I thought they might have to kick him inside the guard. That's no longer the case. He's too athletic, and they'll move him from right tackle to left tackle. So he would be my first guy. Andrew Thomas from Georgia is probably the quote-unquote most pro-ready, which after a while I get tired of saying that because it just seems like you're damning a kid with faint praise. But people feel like they know what they're getting with him. They know they can plug him in, be dependable, whatever. The other ones you feel like there's a little bit more of an upside, and maybe they can be sensational, although they might not be from the beginning. So the Giants at 4, look, Dave Gettleman, the GM there, Coach Gettleman, I've known him since I was in high school. He's always told me, Charles, this is a big man's game. That would fit Becton, but if they got any questions about him, it fits Wirfs in a big way as well.
I like Wirfs for them myself. First of all, I like Iowa linemen, and I like Iowa tight ends.
Kirk Ferentz does a great job.
Good coach, tough program. Plus, I like Big Ten linemen anyway. I like Big Ten linemen. I like Ferentz as players. I like Big Ten linemen anyway. Giants have always liked Big Ten linemen. Always have.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I like that move. Number 2, for the wide receivers, it's funny. You got 3 different styles. You got Lamb, and you got then you got the real fast guy in Ruggs, and then you got the real route runner. Which one do you like the best?
I like Lamb the best out of the 3. Guy scored 32 touchdowns in 3 years. He finds the end zone. And the way the game's played, he knows he has a great sense of space on the field and understanding where people are and where he should be, and finds ways to get open for his quarterback. I'm not saying the other guys don't, but as the game breaks down and these quarterbacks are making second and third reaction moves, that fits CeeDee Lamb's game in a big way. But Mike, it's a sliver between them. You know, like if I don't get CeeDee Lamb and I have to draft Jerry Jeudy, am I going to cry on my milk? No, I'm going to be ecstatic. Am I going to go, if I get Henry Ruggs, I'm going to be ecstatic. But I can go deeper than that and be happy with receivers. Justin Jefferson from LSU, Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, Laviska Shenault from Colorado, T. Higgins from Clemson. I keep going. It is a loaded wide receiver group, and that's why some teams who are really hot on receiver, they may wait a little bit if they have to get another position. Like if you got a chance to get one of the top 4 offensive tackles versus a receiver, your tiebreaker's probably the 4 tackles would be gone quickly. I can get good receiver maybe later in the draft.
The Jets could be in that position where they might be. So. They could take the last tackle, which I think they would, and then they can go either trade back up or just on the second round get themselves a wide receiver.
Absolutely agree with that one. If they have someone in mind later, you can make that trade, get back in. But I don't know that you'll absolutely have to, because a couple of guys that I mentioned may get pushed to the second round because of medical. Laviska Shenault, I think, is a first-rounder all day long, but he's had the core injury. He's had a couple of other dings. He didn't run as fast at the combine, I think, because of the core injury. He may go the second round, and I've already called him Deebo Samuel too, and that's where Deebo came out of last year. Second-round guy, went to San Francisco. They have similar play styles, similar physiques.
Who's the guy in this draft who you like, who maybe is a little off the radar?
There's a corner from Louisiana Tech named Amik Robertson. I'm big on ball hawks, Mike. This kid, remember when Kevin Byard came out in Middle Tennessee State, didn't get invited to the combine?
Right.
19 career picks. He looks like he's patrolling center field pretty well for the Titans right now. There's a second kid last year went to Washington, Jimmy Moreland, out of James Madison, 16, 17 career picks, while at James Madison ended up becoming a starter the back half of the year. Ball hawks always intrigued me. Amik Robertson would be a nickel-type pass cover and a ball hawk as well. I think he'll probably be in a second-round conversation, and I think he'll stick somewhere and play right away.
How about the Notre Dame tight end?
Like him a lot. He's the best combo tight end in the thing, and we have to define them now. And combo versus pass catcher, but I think he's got more juice as a pass catcher than we give him credit for. And that Notre Dame group, remember how you talked about the Iowa offensive linemen, and we love them because of what Ferentz does? Look at the line of Notre Dame tight ends that have come into the league, and most of them have been productive. He's a kid who has that. I love the kid out of Florida Atlantic, Harrison Bryant, for his pass-catching ability. But as far as being a combo blocker, pass catcher, Kmet's going to be the first one. But I don't know that we'll get a tight end in the first round.
Are you a love guy as far as him going in the first half of the first round, or you got him going later than that?
Last mock draft and the one I finished at about 4:30 this morning, I think I've got him. Last one I had him going 23 to New England. This one 24 to New Orleans. So I've got him on the bottom part. And don't be surprised if he slips even more. I'm going to look at Green Bay at 30 and wonder if they do the same thing like they did with Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was there. Aaron's older than Brett was at that time. These guys weren't there then, but they were trained by the guy who did that then. This could be an interesting deal to see how that part goes down, because Green Bay is going to be looking for that successor, but I don't know that they're going to go out of their way. But if he drops down, he's the one. And in this draft, Mike, Jalen Hurts might be this year's Lamar Jackson or Teddy Bridgewater, meaning someone trades back in at the bottom of the first round to get that fifth-year option on a quarterback.
Can you think he can throw? Now, listen, you love how he handled himself. Yep. You love how resilient he was. You know he's a good leader. We know that. A tough kid, high-quality kid. Yep. I don't care about his Wonderlic either. He didn't score high either, but I don't care. But I just wonder about him, whether he can throw it enough to play in the league.
I felt like that got better this year, and I will tell you this is one person, right? Me. Dak Prescott, I was on record his junior year in college saying, I don't know. Senior year, I thought I saw as much improvement from junior to senior year, throwing the ball, leading his team, carrying a team. They got the number one in the country, Mike, Mississippi State, and this was in late November. Like, how did this happen? This kid did it. I see a lot of those same characteristics with Hurts, and I thought his throwing improved. That year at Oklahoma was big for him, just being able to throw, which is what they did. Yeah, he's got some stuff to work on and clean up, but let's not forget this. Son of a coach.
Not only that, he showed more quality.
So many people.
And he showed such quality as a person, too. I mean, just enormous quality. I mean, never complained at all.
The way he handled the Tua thing, when he got benched at halftime national championship, and then came back and bailed Tua out.
Yeah, never complained. And waited a whole year. The whole year to bail him out, and never complained once. And then did what he did in Oklahoma. The guy is. I mean, listen, you'd like to have him on your team just for those reasons. I mean, the guy is going to be good for any team he's got. He's going to be a good guy to have around.
Phillip Rivers grew up son of a coach. We talked about that all the time. That's where that throwing motion came from with the ball and this and that. Kellen Moore came out, son of a coach, the whole thing. I don't think it's been talked about enough with Jalen Hurts. His dad coached him. He came out of the womb drawing plays and wondering what a cover two was and the whole thing. Played for his dad in high school and carried that on to all the things that you just talked about.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, because he's a guy you could see having a career for sure. I mean, when you see guys like Winston who can't find a job. I mean, Winston has thrown 120 touchdown passes in his career, and he can't find a job. I mean, I understand he's thrown 90 interceptions, okay? And I understand he got a lot of money. And I know a couple of guys said to me they don't like that it's never his fault. Like, he doesn't seem to want to take any blame for anything. I mean, listen, he threw for 5,000 yards last year. I mean, and threw for 33 touchdowns. That's a great year. I mean, I understand that, but he also threw 30 interceptions. So, I mean, but that when a guy like him can't find a job, it's hard to find a job in this league.
It certainly is. And when Cam Newton can't find a job, a former MVP that you could build around and do a lot of things with your offense, and could show progression later in his career with Norv Turner, that's a whole nother question mark as well. I think some of that is injury. And the other part, too, Mike, is if you take on Cam, with his personality and people drawn to him and the organization better be ready for it to.
I worry about him because I worry about he's so used to being pampered and he's so used to being the guy. I don't know how he would handle anything else. I would take a better. I'd be more comfortable with Winston because Cam was such a big star and has always acted like such a big star. I don't know if he could handle it.
I'd have to sit down and look him in the eye and talk about what we're doing. But you're better off if you're going to bring him in that he is going to be the guy, as opposed to bringing him in that it's not good, it's not sure, and you're not clear. Because I just think the battle lines get drawn differently that way. Winston, I think he understands where he has to go, what he has to get done. The question he has to answer, and this is where I would argue with the critics who say he never takes on, responsibility. Right. Look at the press conferences over time. It's almost the same one every time. I know I've got to be better. I know I've got to do this. I know. Well, do it. I mean, that's kind of what people want out of you because the talent is just too obvious. They scored almost 600 points.
No, listen, but he does listen. And I thought he was going to be a good player. I really did. Now he's been a good player. He's just also been just a mistake-prone player of unbelief. He's good for both teams. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody has stopped him. That's for sure. But he stopped himself plenty of times with those interceptions.
And what he has to explain to people when they sit him down is this: I don't care what you think about Dirk Cutter as a head coach. He's known as a quarterback developer. Bruce Arians is the quarterback whisperer.
Yep.
If it didn't work with those two guys, what are we going to do? Jameis, why is it going to be different this time?
Yeah, and also Jameis thought, well, listen, it took Tom Brady to replace me. Well, listen, nobody cares about that right now. I mean, that's it. That it took Tom Brady. So it doesn't matter. But that's an awful good quarterback to have bouncing around the league right now, though.
It is, and the flip side of that discussion, I would think, would be, but it's a 43-year-old Tom Brady replacing the former number one pick in the draft. We shouldn't even be having this discussion.
And that's very true. Detroit at 3. You went to Miami at 5 with Tua, which I understand.
Yep.
Detroit's made it open that they'll trade the pick. If they keep the pick, everybody thinks they'll take the corner. Okay, I would guess they would. Detroit, though. Can you see them doing something different or something goofy or something that changes the draft with that third pick?
I can see them doing what you posited earlier, which is entertaining the pick. And if they could get out of being at 3 and drop down to a level where they can get with who they want with that first pick and then pick up a second one, I think they'd do it in a heartbeat. They are under the direction, as we well know, from their management to play meaningful games.
No, they got to win next year, and obviously, and their quarterback is a good player. He's just got to stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think that would be the thing. But didn't you find it interesting that the story is breaking big? And here's the rookie coach, Joe Judge, with the Giants. They're very open about all these conversations with Justin Herbert. Now, having drafted Daniel Jones, I don't see that happening.
I don't buy it for a second.
By the fact that they're doing it, this is the time I'm finally hearing them say, if you're interested, we might actually move off of 4 because Coach Gettleman has not done that before. We might actually move down and pick up someone if you're interested in coming up and finding your guy.
See, this is where this is what I talk about, and we're talking with Charles Davis, NFL game and draft analyst for many, many years in the NFL. This is where the league and the draft stuff is complete utter nonsense. There is not a chance in the world that the Giants are taking a quarterback. Not a chance in the world. And if anyone, the Giants would be admitting to you they have no plan and no clue if they would take a quarterback. After what they did, they kept Eli Manning on. They took Eli Manning on the roster for $20 million last year and never played him. And then drafted a quarterback who they probably could have got with their second first-round pick on their first-round pick, and he turned out to be an okay player. If they turned around and took a quarterback this year, you'd want their heads checked. I mean, you'd basically admit they don't have a clue what they're doing.
Totally with you. they're not taking the quarterback. They're just trying to signal to people, and if someone's crazy enough to buy it,
Yep.
I don't know that anyone will. But here's the other part.
You're a
of it,
lousy
too.
poker player if you think the Giants are taking a quarterback.
Right. But other thing, too, Mike, you know Patriots, and you know what they've done in the past. Joe Judge, one of those Patriot people. They've always done a terrific job of checking out every quarterback crop that comes through, even if they have no need for it, in case down the road that guy comes available, or they got to play against him in a big game. They want to know as much about them. I think this is part of that Patriot process with Joe Judge, getting to know these young quarterbacks as they enter the league.
Well, I'll tell you what's an interesting thing here is that Judge got the Bill Belichick seal of approval, which is why he's why he's with the Giants. Gettleman has always considered the draft his baby, as you know, because you know him well. Okay.
Yes.
Now it's going to be interesting to see how much input the head coach has into the pick, because that's always been Gettleman's baby, and now here's a first-year head coach who clearly has the backing of the organization as the guy who is the face of the franchise going forward.
And having met Joe Judge and spent time with him for the first time.
And I don't know Joe Judge from a hole in the wall. Yeah. I've never even met Joe Judge.
But Mike, the first time I met him and spent time with him was at the Combine this year. I came away very, very impressed by meeting him, spending time, conversation. And my impression, and look, my impression is worth, nothing. But my impression is that he and Coach Gettleman are going to work pretty well together on this. Yes, this is Coach Gettleman's baby. There's no doubt. But I think that he will listen to input from Joe Judge without question. And Joe Judge will also take counsel from Coach Gettleman. I think they'll be in lockstep for at least for this year. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
And I would think that will lead you to listen, the Giants are in a position where if they do anything with their talent right now, considering that there's not an incredible edge pass rusher available at 4, with that being the case, there's no way that if they do anything but take a tackle, I will be flabbergasted.
I say not the only, but that organization, the DNA, the fans' DNA, is on the defensive side.
I know, but I just don't think there's a player there that, like I said, if there was a guy there, I don't think there's a player there that you can just say automatic, he's the guy.
The one that the fans would get amped up for and are intrigued by is the kid out of Clemson and Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, except
Isaiah Simmons is a jack of all trades.
Yeah, that kind of guy might not even play. Yeah, he might not even play all 3 downs. That kind of thing. So I still think they got a chance to lock in a 10-year tackle. You got to take him. I think you got to take him.
Yeah, I'm with you because if you spent the draft capital on the quarterback last year, you've got to start taking care of him and start finding ways for Saquon Barkley to run without running into someone's back and having to bounce out.
And then you got the interesting thing there, Charles, and that is it a big, strong, healthy Herbert, or is it Tua? I mean, that's really the interesting thing there. Is it the big, strong quarterback who's healthy, or is it the kid who's got a lot of talent? Now, some guys, I know guys who don't love Tua, and I love Tua. Yep. I think Tua is going to be if he's healthy, I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. But I know guys who say, I don't like little quarterbacks who get hurt, okay? Yes, he's incredibly talented. He's incredibly accurate. I don't love guys who are, by most NFL standards, undersized. If Lawrence is the prototype, Tua is undersized, okay? Lawrence is central casting, 6'6", body by God, the whole thing. He's going to have Hall of Fame grade next year. Tua is 1.5 maybe?
6'1",
yeah. And is a lot like a Montana Breeze, Russell Wilson type of quarterback, and with a great accuracy and a great feel for the game, and a great physical ability. But he's also brittle as brittle can be. So, I mean, that's why I understand someone who would pass on him, because he's had 4 major injuries in 2 years. I mean, that's a lot.
It is, and that's why this year, more so than any, where you don't get a chance to do every last, check your boxes, right? You can't do everything with him because you couldn't touch him these last couple of months because of COVID and everything else. You're taking a little bit of a leap of faith, but part of you is going to be sitting there saying, am I passing on what I think, as you said, can be that type of a talent? And with Herbert, do people feel that way, or do they just feel he's a safe pick? who I think will be a very good player.
I think he's a safe pick myself. Tua is,
and that's what people.
Tua can be a star.
debating.
The other kid's a safe pick, I think.
And that's where the debate kicks in. And if you're Miami, and I know they're trying to sell, I shouldn't say trying to sell. There's been that discussion that with the 3 picks they have, they may not even take a quarterback at 5. They'll go get him. I don't buy that at all. They can't go back to their fan base. They can't go back to their organization and not take the best swing at the top quarterback left after Burrow, to me, in good faith. I just don't see that happening. They're going to have to figure out if they have to move up, if they have to do anything, can they stick at 5? But they should be taking the next swing at the number 2 quarterback.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate it. Enjoy your week this week. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much, as always.
You do the same.
Thank you,
Stay
Charles.
safe, Mike.
Thank you. Charles Davis, back after this.